Welcome back to the homestead, guys. This past week I was working on a project that I just wanted to show y'all what I did, and part of it's in the greenhouse I showed in a previous video, and the other part is actually outside. Hey chickens, nice and warm in here. It's funny because, wow, is the lens fogging up? So outside right now it's about 34 degrees, and in here it is about, what's that, 53, 52? Yeah, probably 53 degrees in here. It's so humid in here that when I walk from the temperature change from outside to in here, because the camera's cold, my lens keeps on fogging up. So I've never experienced that before. Again, this is the first season though we've got the greenhouse enclosed fully, besides little areas. So y'all saw this before. It's a little bit different from the previous video in that I changed the inlet. The way the water comes in now is through some 3/4 inch PEX, and that comes underneath the ground on the outside and then up and then into the greenhouse. Here I have a little valve system that I can shut, and I can turn this thing, I can turn it off. Well, that was not off, that was full speed. So I can turn that thing off, or I can just barely open it up to get a slow trickle, or I can shoot some water through here, but that's a little too fast because it fills up the reservoir too quick. So I'll leave it about right here so it's strong enough so that if it gets too cold it won't freeze, and it keeps the water circulation going. So that valve's been nice on there, so I rigged that up. And then I also changed the discharge, or the outlet, a little bit, because this was way too small than what I had in that previous video. If you haven't seen the video where I detail the chicken water, the new chicken water, then I'll leave a link in the description below. You can check that out. So that's what I changed on the chicken water. As I was doing this, you know, I tend to get into projects and I go too far and meticulous into, you know, a project that doesn't really pay off a ton in the end. And so this was one of those projects, and I stopped halfway through and I said, you know what, I'm digging a trench, I'm laying all this line, what can I do to kind of turn this into a more beneficial project? So let's go out back of the greenhouse here and I'll show you what I did. So this I trenched out with the skid steer. I dug probably about a 2-foot trench all the way from here to where the pond aerator is, so right over there. And so I have that inch and a half PVC line that runs 2 feet down, goes over there, and then I have the 3/4 inch PEX that runs 2 feet down, goes over there. And then the PEX splits off about right here, and it comes over to my frost-free spigot. So this is what I did kind of halfway through, so that I'd have water back here in this garden area. Right now we're pulling all of our water from the city water, and we wanted to get off of city water and start utilizing the pond for one of the big reasons we built the pond, which was the permaculture aspect of it, that we can use and pull from that pond water and use to irrigate our crops. So we're going to be doing that with this frost-free spigot here. I did everything so that it wouldn't freeze in the winter. There's some spots that I got to tie up. As you could tell, that 3/4 inch line that comes up in the greenhouse, that's still exposed. I got to figure out something there, but I think the greenhouse will stay warm enough, and I'll have that water continually flowing, so I don't think it'll freeze. I'll fix it when I run into it, basically, is what is the plan so far. So over here on the pond side, I have my discharge. So this is where the chicken water comes out, so we're not wasting all of that water that goes through the chicken water. It comes down through the ground, through that 1.5 inch pipe, and then exits back into the pond. So we're not wasting all that water, and the chickens can get what they want from it. So we're making all of this happen with this guy right here. This is just your standard transfer pump. It runs on 110. It's just a normal cast iron pump. And so I don't know. So this is where all of the water is coming from. Obviously you have your inlet here, the hose that goes down and into the pond. So that hose pulls the pond water up, comes in, goes into the transfer pump and then pumps it down through the 3/4 inch line, and then obviously under the ground and over to the chicken water, and then over to the frost-free spigot. So what I'm gonna do to remedy some of these water lines that are sticking out from freezing is I'm gonna build a box around this whole area right here and enclose it and insulate it. So that will enclose the pond aerator, and it will enclose the transfer pump. So all this can be in a little bit warmer environment. Also, it'll cut down on some of that noise. Right now, as you can hear, the transfer pump's running, and that will stay running pretty much all winter, or as long as I can run this thing out. It says to check the brushes on the motor every 100 hours. So I don't know how long this thing's gonna last. I'm gonna run it continuously and see where we get. And if we get some life out of it, then it'll be a good option. If we don't, then we'll have to switch to something else, some other pump that's built more commercial to run 24/7. So we'll look into that after I find out how long this thing's gonna last. This pump, I'll leave a link in the description below. I got mine from my local Menards. I'll leave a comparable pump from Amazon in the description below. I actually got this one. It was $100 from Menards, and you can find them all over the place. The one I'm gonna leave on Amazon, I think, is about $65, something like that. That one actually is a commercial pump. They say you can leave running 24/7. Anyway, these things are cast iron. They're meant to endure the weather. And so we'll see how this thing does. So as you can see, the chickens love this water. It's been working out great so far. I haven't had to do the normal things that I do in the winter, which is either plug up a base heater for the water, or smash up ice every single morning, or bring a bucket of water out every single morning. There's any number of laborious tasks that you have to do to keep your chickens watered in the winter. So this frost-free spigot behind me we had laying in the basement. All I did was obviously I dug out my 2-foot hole, and then once that was dug, I took a T-post and I pounded it into the ground as kind of a support for that whole structure, instead of having to do something, you know, a little bit more permanent. And then I used some wire at the base. It's actually located under the ground, and I cinched the frost-free spigot to the T-post down below the ground. And I think I'll actually leave the T-post just like that. It kind of butts up right underneath this lip of the frost-free spigot, and then I'll get a clamp and I'll clamp these two things together real tight. But that's pretty sturdy. So to water all of these beds that are eventually going to come on back and then on over, to water all of these beds, we'll probably be using drip irrigation, and for that we're going to pull off of this thing. So the awesome thing about this is we are no longer using city water to irrigate our crops at this point. So come spring, when we start to grow in these beds, and actually even just the greenhouse, we're going to irrigate this whole area with the pond behind me. And you know, since we have this creek next to the pond, that's another huge benefit. We can pull rainwater, storm water that runs down, we can pull over with my other transfer pump, and we can transfer it over from the creek to this pond as the pond drops in level. And then we'll use the transfer pump, and we'll use this spigot out here, and we'll connect all of these beds up so they have permanent irrigation to them. We'll probably end up putting valves on every single bed so we can just turn individual beds on and off. That'll be a big project for the spring. But let me show you the pond water running through here. Just like that, we got pond water coming through here. So anyway, guys, I'm super excited about, you know, getting off of city water and being able to irrigate all our crops for free. That's huge. You know, it's been a long time in the making. Building the pond, getting all this stuff ready has taken a while. But come spring, we're gonna have a great irrigation system out here, and I'm super pumped that we get to utilize our pond, which was one of the original visions and why we built this pond in the first place. So that's exciting. The jury is still out on that transfer pump. We'll see how it works. I'm really putting it to the test on purpose. Some of you might ask, well, why do you got to run it 24/7? I'm intentionally not stopping it to see how long it's gonna run, to see if, you know, we get 2 months into this thing and that thing's still running, then great, it's gonna do what it needs to do. And if I need to change the brushes on it every once in a while, then that's easy. If we get a week into this and the thing stops running and the brushes are already dead, or whatever happens to it happens, then I'll need to find a commercial unit and go that route. It's one of the coolest pieces about this irrigation setup is that we are almost totally off the grid. Besides the transfer pump, everything else is off grid. So if we wanted to come back later and incorporate a solar transfer pump, we could always do that. We are putting into practice some of the things, the vision that we had in the beginning of this whole thing when we first started, which was incorporating permaculture design into the overall homestead here and what we have going on. And that's exciting. We've done some of this stuff. And so come spring, we are going to be using our pond water to irrigate our crops, which is extremely exciting. You might say, what's the point in doing all of this? Well, one of the big points is that eventually down the road, we want to move off this 5 acres. We want to move on to 200 acres out in the country, get out of the city a little ways, and we want to put to practice the things that we learned, the things that we did well, the things that we did bad, and we want to put them into practice on a larger piece of property and really see this thing take off. If you don't know much about the vision of Goshen and what our goal is in the end, check out a video. I'll link it in the description below. It's called The Heart of Goshen, and that is what we're after. Guys, thank you so much for watching. Thank you for tracking with our journey. I will see y'all in the next video.